Tonight we recall the loss suffered by Hollywood. We look at the movies and shows that Hollywood created to bear witness to the fear and the pain and the struggle, also the courage and the camaraderie that emerged from the AIDS crisis. And we celebrate the inspirational activism, care, and philanthropy shown by some in Hollywood, many in Hollywood during this dark time.
Rare cancer seen in 41 homosexuals. Outbreak occurs among men in New York and
California. 8 died inside 2 years.
I want to talk about your very first memories of HIV. When did it first come into your world, and what was it like?
When my friends doing Dreamgirls on Broadway literally just started dropping dead of a mysterious disease, it just changed everything about me. You would go to the hospital to see your friend, and there was no hospital bed for them. You know, you would find them pushed out in the hallway or on one of those little gurneys with a sign that said, "Do not touch."
Now, I don't like to hurt anyone's feelings, but if these boys hadn't been doing what they do, they wouldn't be getting what's coming to them now.
Imogen, gays aren't the only ones getting it.
No, but they're the ones who started it.
Actually, nobody knows how it got started.
I remember going to the hospital to see one friend, and his skin had just turned like black. And it was like his skin was like peeling off of him. And he looked at me and he couldn't speak. And oh my God, and this, I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was, he could hardly lift up his hands. And it was, oh my God, it was like his hands were just saying, "Just touch me. Just hold me." And I remember, like when I put my arms around him, how he just like exhaled. And I was like, how can they put that sign on him? "Don't touch." Because I don't know how long he'd been up there, just dying for some shit. Literally dying, and then dying for somebody to just touch him and remind him that he was a human being, no matter how he looked to them.
In 1981, I was 21, and I was in graduate school at Cornell, and I was doing a play. We had a guest director come in from New York, a young guy. He was 33 years old. His name was Stuart White, and he had a cold the whole time. We were working together. He had a terrible, like, flu-ish cold that he couldn't shake. And then I heard that he had AIDS. Like, within 3 months, he was dead.
I mean, you could sing with somebody tonight, they'd be fighting for their life tomorrow.
Then everybody that I knew was dying. I mean, the 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85 was a fucking nightmare. It was just endless.
I remember watching the nightly news with Tom Brokaw with my parents, and he was talking about the gay cancer. But then when it showed up in movies like The Early Frost, and when the AIDS quilt got a lot of attention, that's when I started to really understand the devastation and the impact.
I remember watching a movie early on that was really shocking called An Early Frost, and it was with Gina Rowlands. And it was the first time that we actually saw real time what it was like to catch HIV.
You can't get AIDS just by being around someone who has it, that it's only transmissible through intimate sexual contact or blood.
What, you want a complete rundown of my sexual history?
Yeah.
It was the idea of a wonderful gentleman named Perry Lafferty, who was an executive at NBC. He felt so strongly about doing a film about, and I won't say AIDS, because back then it was called GRID. This was before there was AIDS. We beat Monday Night Football, believe it or not. We had no sponsors. All the sponsors pulled out of it. The awards came, and I think we got something like 12 or 14 nominations. And my partner, Ron Cowan, and I won the Emmy for a Best Screenplay. And I think we won one for editing, but that's about it. But at least we got the nominations. We were recognized.
The first time that the AIDS quilt appeared in LA was at the Pauley Pavilion at UCLA, and it was the size of a basketball court. with panels hanging from the eaves. At the end of it, I just lay down on the quilt because 4 of the panels were my best friends. My boyfriend was hanging from the eaves, and I was a wreck. And suddenly I see Hugh Hudson come out of the stands, and he cradles me and says, "Put your grief and anger into making a documentary about this." And it was like the Liberty Bell fell on my head. And the next day I called up Rob and Jeff, who made Milk, and we made that documentary.
It took Rock Hudson's death to capture America's attention. By that time, AIDS had already killed 15,000 other Americans.
Kaposi sarcoma. Even my doctor had to look it up. Nothing to worry about, he said. Usually happens to Italian men in their 60s who continue to live a normal life till they die of something else.
When Hollywood started making movies and TV shows about HIV and AIDS, they were reflecting and reacting to what was happening in the country at large, but also they were responding to what was happening in their own backyard, to their friends and coworkers who were getting sick and dying.
Hollywood truly, in its purest form, showed up and put HIV/AIDS into the living room. You know, Rock Hudson changed everything. That was the first time some people had ever heard of the virus.
Rock Hudson's friends, notably Elizabeth Taylor, joined in the fight. She adopted this as her cause.
Tell America why you're here tonight.
Why? You mean you don't know already? I'm here to help fight AIDS.
Before that, we had done fundraisers, but it was impossible to get people to do them because they were afraid of being associated with the disease. So it was basically people who had had loss in their lives. Bette Midler, Joan Rivers was one of the first.
What I want to say before we go any further, you, Charles, and me, that black drag queen you always talk about, did that first show for AIDS.
Benefit for AIDS.
Before anyone did it, and I want to say thank you, and I want to say...
Thank you. We all did it, yes.
When Rock Hudson got sick, it all sort of came out at once. And in addition to that, the organizations, the people who had been thrown together in what was called gay liberation to attempt to start a political movement began shifting from that into an AIDS movement because it became clear that the government wasn't going to do anything about it. And so we had to take care of our own.
There was so much fear and there was so much shame. And the shame, I think, actually did as much to kill people as the disease itself sometimes. You know, to carry that anxiety and that loneliness and that isolation was so horrible. Wouldn't you be more comfortable in a research room?
No. Would it make you more comfortable?
Scott Harris, my work partner now, was so incredible to me. I walked in 10 days later after he found out that his founding partner was about to leave. And I told him, I said, me too. I said, I have to be honest with you. You're going to have to go through this again. He said, you know what? Your story's going to be different. We'll figure it out. I'm here for you. You have a job for the rest of your life.
I have vivid memories of watching Real World Season 3 San Francisco with Pedro Zamora, and I remember it was on for about 26 weeks running.
Over the past few years, Pedro became a member of all of our families. Now, no one in America can say they've never known someone who's living with AIDS.
The first wave of films and TV shows from Hollywood largely presented AIDS as stories of white gay men. Eventually, Hollywood moved into a more nuanced look at the impact of AIDS on other parts of the community, such as children and people of color.
Nobody can get it. Not by me just going to school. I know that. Then tell me. I have. I just came from the school. They won't listen.
Kelvin, you got HIV. You way out of line, Kenny.
You have HIV? And you're down here kissing me all in my mouth?
Nurse said I'm HIV positive. I remember you once told me you never really got to tell your story. Right.
Precious had AIDS, y'all.
When I got the role in Looking, I was informed by GLAAD that I was the first HIV positive character on television in years. And they feel, along with ETAF, that a lack of representation in the media is partially contributing to a rise in new infections.
I'm HIV positive.
Y'all in Hollywood kissing motherfuckers
which
like
means
that?
that the medicine is working, so that's good.
Niggas.
And I'm gonna live a happy, healthy
Niggas running
life
around here
for a
with
long
AIDS,
time.
y'all.
I'm embarrassed about our generation today.
Lee Daniels.
That don't acknowledge the annihilation of an entire, millions of men that died.
They'll never know that feeling. What it's like to love without worrying that you're gonna die, or worse yet, that you're gonna kill somebody.
I live with the death of thousands of gay men. A lot of gays had to come together, and it was a unity that was not in the generation of gay men that we see or women that we see today. We came together as a whole because our parents were not taking us in.
Lee Daniels.
And we buried our own.
150,000 dead!
I am furious with you and every goddamn doctor who made me feel it was sick to love a man. I am trying to understand why nobody gives a shit that we're dying!
Mr. Woodruff, I'm moved to compassion by your plight, but what is lacking here is legal authority to intervene. I'm sorry, this case is hereby dismissed.
I don't have time to be that victim, that AIDS poster boy, that cautionary tale. No, I decide who I am. I'm going to be what I was born to be. Freddie fucking Mercury.
The fact that Hollywood has taken the time to write the stories, to tell the stories, and to celebrate and honor the people that we did lose in those incredibly dark and horrific and quite frankly scary times is phenomenal. And the fact that they continue to. As people in Hollywood and in entertainment, how do we change that idea that people aren't getting it, they don't care?
I can only change it by writing and directing and producing work that changes the conversation.
I'm wearing a t-shirt that says U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. And this is the new mantra that we all need to be screaming from the rooftops. But nobody knows about that. I mean, we're getting it out there, but I would like to see us putting HIV positive people on screen, you know, being successful and getting on with their lives. Because until we do that, we don't normalize HIV.
If you're going to be on the front line, stand on the front line.
Thank you.
Do not act like this is not happening, because unless we become the real human beings we say we are, with open arms, welcoming all people, then this will still continue, because HIV/AIDS is all about an ism and hate.
Today, African American and Latino men are disproportionately likely to contract HIV. Hollywood needs to tell their stories.